is if I gave you, okay, $500,000, let's say, and I told you, hey, go build a house. I'm going to give you this lot right here, and here's $500,000. You wouldn't run out to Home Depot or Lowe's and start buying materials. You
Yep.
would do a blueprint.
Right.
You just would. You would cut, and then and the blueprint would be based on your needs. You wouldn't just start nailing up boards, but we do the same thing in a business plan.
This is another episode of the Automate and Grow podcast. My guest today is Sean Castrina, and he is an entrepreneur and author, and he's the host of the 10-Minute Entrepreneur podcast. So first of all, Sean, thank you for joining me today.
No, it's great to be on the podcast.
Where are you based, Sean? Actually, I forgot to ask.
Charlottesville, Virginia, University of Virginia, UVA.
Oh,
so yeah, it is beautiful. It's my wife and I moved here 20 years ago because it was voted the nicest city in America to live 2 out of 3 years in a row,
And it's
according to Money Magazine. And we could, yeah, it was like, okay, we could live anywhere. Let's try it.
That's amazing. So your latest book, you've just released out on Amazon, and it's called The World's Greatest Business Plan. So tell me, what is the world's greatest business plan?
Well, the difference between this one and all the others, and I have them all sitting behind me. If you look behind me, there's like 10 of them stacked in that bookshelf. My son was starting a company, and he and his friends. So I was kind of like, I have a simple formula that I use to vet a business, but I kind of wanted him to go through a traditional business plan. So I started, I'd buy a book and kind of look at it, and maybe I'd refer it to him. And one was worse than the next. They were way too long. They're like dissertations for a doctorate degree, typically written by professors who you could tell never had started a business. They just knew they knew. It's like somebody trying to tell you how to play basketball. Like they can tell you how to functionally dribble, but it's just very, very hard to convey.
They don't do it.
Yeah. So there was no real practical application. And the biggest problem I had is that Company A was thought of or conceived in chapter 1, and in chapter 10, it was a successful company doing millions of dollars and everything went perfect. I started more than 20 companies. I've yet to experience that amazing chapter 1 through 10 with no pivots and all that. The other problem is that it's by chapter 10, it's paying all its bills, the owner's making money. It's just not a reality. So I went back to my original formula that I've been using for, 25 years on the real questions to ask, because I'm as happy to make you not go forward with your business as you going forward, because I'm going to save you a ton of money. And if I can beat the heck out of your business plan, the marketplace is going to kick the crap out of it. So I approach it a little more differently in the book that I wrote, but I literally wrote it kind of for my son to just make the business plan concept easier and more practical. And again, it's the formula I've been using for 20 years.
So I'm excited that you wrote this, because I have this thesis that business plans are junk. And that people in general, and I think it's for the reasons you cited, right? It's usually this really complicated thing that doesn't validate the real product or idea. And I noticed in your book, you have something called Know Your Big Three. So I'm curious, what are your big three?
You need to, well, let me see here. The main thing is that I find people that they need to know why they're starting this business in the first place. Like what is it about your company that why are you doing this? Do you understand your industry? Do you really know it top, bottom, what you're going to be doing out there? Do you know your competition? So it's just, if you don't know your competition, you don't understand your industry, okay? And you don't understand your target customer. That's probably the way that I define it more in the book, is that you got to have some really good understanding of this business, of your competition, of your target customer. So if I was going to tell somebody, give them a test, I'd be like, tell me about who's your target customer going to be? I mean, that's a big question. I mean, if you don't know who that is, how are you going to market to it? How are you going to develop a product or service if you don't even know who's going to buy from you? If you don't know who your competition is, how are you going to create a competitive advantage or a unique selling proposition? And if you have no understanding of the industry, how are you going to price things? How are you going to know what the future looks like in that industry? Are you coming in with late technology and things of that nature? So I just try to approach it in a very simple way that when we get started in the book, let's get the ball rolling. These are three things that you might want to answer before we even move forward with the business plan, actually.
I love it. So now I noticed that you also advocate a 30-day startup plan. So is this kind of like an accelerator type model that you're thinking of
You
where
know,
you,
it's what I do, so I take a calendar and I literally break it down every day, what I would do every single day for 30 days based on us going through the business plan. The business plan is like 25 questions. So just to give you an example, like I have the book in my hand, day one, why do you want to be a business owner? Just answer that question. So if you went through my business plan, day two, why do you believe this business idea will succeed? I get pitched all the time. I just, John, Mary, tell me why this business is the one. Simple question, but it's amazing how people stumble over that answer. Now, number three, day number three, what resources do you lack? Time, expertise, capital, skill. So every day I take you through, and then by the end of it, we've done you'll have gone through the entire book. And so if you take it piece by piece, because you don't need to do the business plan in one day, but by the end of the 30 days, if you've done all the exercises, you'll be ready to start the business.
I love it. I think the approach is much more practical than just something up with theoretical ideas, but you get to the mindset, it sounds like. And that seems to be really important.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, my thing, I'm a mindset guy, but I'm a take action guy. And if you can have all the mindset you want, if you got a bad idea is still a bad idea.
Totally.
This is what I tell people, like the idea, like hard work. I love the concept of hard work, but the illustration is this. If I run as fast as I can in the wrong direction, I'm never going to hit the finish line. So yeah. So at the end of the day, you still got to go in the right direction. And what I share with people regarding like a business plan book is if I gave you, okay, $500,000, let's say, and I told you, hey, go build a house. I'm going to give you this lot right here, and here's $500,000. You wouldn't run out to Home Depot or Lowe's and start buying material. You darn sure wouldn't just start framing the house. Yep. You would do a blueprint.
Right.
You just would. You would cut, and that blueprint would be based on your needs. Okay, do we need 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms? How many bathrooms do we need? Do we want a master on the first floor? Do we want on the second floor? I can go through all that, but you wouldn't just start nailing up boards, but we do the same thing in a business plan. I tell people in the simplest, if I gave you $5,000 and I said, go on a vacation, go take your dream vacation, you wouldn't just jump in the car. You'd be like, well, do we want a summer vacation or a winter vacation? Do we like skiing or do we like the beach? Is there a country we want to go see? Or do we want to take an RV trip around America? I'm just saying, take the same amount of time that you would a vacation to plan a vacation to plan your business.
Now, you mentioned before to me, before we jumped on, that you've got 9 different companies. You mentioned that you've started 20 and that the road is never straight. And you say something about your business plan being able to take a punch. So what does that mean, and how does that work out for you in that scenario?
Example, when you start a business, you assume it's kind of this linear path that I'm going to sell A. And that sounds really good, but typically there's no crap moment in every startup. It's either no crap, good or bad.
Right.
It's, oh crap, wow, somebody's asked us if we could provide this. Or, wow, we're getting a lot of requests for our product to be able to do, it's more than what we thought, or what you've got to be able to pivot, because you go in with this idea, but if your customer, if there starts becoming a need that you didn't see, that's why my company right now has 8 different divisions, and they're basically 8 companies in one. It started out something really, really small as a business. I started to pay for a golf membership at a really crazy high-end country club. And my wife was like, hey, listen, if you can do this in your spare time, have at it. So I owned a magazine in 23 cities at the time. So I was doing pretty well, wasn't missing any meals. I started a handyman company because I tried to convert my dining room in my house to an office because we just had a newborn child. And I just wanted to have like recessed lights in the ceiling. I didn't want a cotton picking chandelier hanging there, right? And I wanted a bookshelf built. Very, very, very simple. I am telling you, like the people that came to my house, they either look like serial killers. The prices changed. I
Right.
mean, it was like trying to find somebody competent was like trying to find a one-eyed leprechaun. I started a handyman company at the time, Advantage Handyman. Did A because the phone book always starts with A. That's one of my little marketing secrets. Always go with an A and never pick a name that limits you. Well, needless to say, that company has made me, well, I just did my tax returns today and I showed my son what my tax returns were just to jar him completely loose from what kind of money. He knows I make good money, but the point is we've made, we've done $60 million
That's
with
amazing.
the
That's great.
handyman company
Yeah, it's incredible.
that in a city of 60,000, that's now a roofing company, a siding, we have so many different divisions.
That's amazing.
So it's just,
Oh, did it cut out?
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to figure out. Hello?
Can you hear me or no?
Yeah, I can hear you now. There was a
Okay.
little bit of a pause.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I can edit that out.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. So my point is so this was a handyman company. I started it literally, I hired somebody to answer phones and whatchamacallit, I got this thing just keeps popping up on my screen. I don't know what it is. It's like a little, there we go. Maybe it's gone there. So needless to say, hey, I started a handyman company. 6 weeks in, I had 54 phone calls.
Amazing.
20 years later, I have an on-staff designer, on-staff engineer. I have 6 partners. We do millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, beautiful office, and it's morphed into something that I never imagined. That's my point. When I started it, I was looking to make like $30,000 part-time passive.
Wow.
Just use my marketing skills, make the phone ring. That was my thing. That's what I figured. Well, 5 weeks in, 54 phone calls, you pivot.
Suddenly this could be something bigger. That's amazing.
Exactly. It hit me that, hey, this could be something bigger. And then, about 8 years later, I sold the magazine and, focused on this. And then I own a digital marketing company as well, because how all businesses start for me, I filled a need. I was buying digital ads from people that were in different states and I had no idea what they were selling me. And I get an email report every month. I finally met with somebody local who worked for a radio station. I buy lots of radio ads and he explained it to me in a way that I could understand. And I said, listen, I'm going to hire you. I want you to work with me, but every month I want you to come meet with me and explain to me what we're doing in 15 minutes or less. And I said, so we did this. And then I told him, I said, I want you to handle my account. It's funny, when I told him that, I called him the next day. I also told him, I left him with this little caveat. I said, James, we're either going to partner in business or you're going to be an employee of mine, but you're really sharp. And he said, I kind of appreciate the compliment, but the way you said it, I actually believed it. He said, you kind of said it in a way that made me think about it. And it's funny, about 6 months later, he handled my account, did a great job. It was like May of that year. I said, have you ever been to Disney World, taking your family to Disney World? He goes, well, no, but we'd love to. He's got smaller kids. I said, here, let me pay for that. I said, because remember, I'm putting a down payment on you being my employee or being my partner. And I got a funny feeling we're going to be business partners. Well, 3 years later, we started Gig Strategic. Well, you can Google that, gigstrategic.com, so I'm not blowing smoke. And you'll see James Burton on the front of that. We partnered, and I definitely know we have the best digital marketing company in Virginia. And, we're growing about 40% this year during a virus. But so a few years later, so the idea is I saw a problem that I was having. I was experiencing a problem. I saw somebody who could help me with that problem. And I realized there's lots of other small business owners just like me that we don't want to buy sight unseen. Just, tell us you want to take $5,000 a month or $3,000 a month. Show us what you're going to do with it, and then keep us updated, and then modify it and tell us we need to pivot, we need to change, whatever. Just that face to face. I thought it would be a great business. Well, I was right. It was a really good business.
That's amazing.
So all my businesses come from that basic idea. Look for a need and fill it.
So what's next for you, and maybe tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, so I'm working right now with a startup company that actually works with getting people on podcasts. And it's really cool because again, here's another example. Launching my book, I use media companies and they try to get, they get you on podcasts and the price is crazy. And I
Right.
hired a company to do that. Well, my book launched, basically around March. To get me on 20 podcasts, it took them almost 8 months,
Oh, wow.
which is crazy. Listen to this. So this is why teenagers are incredible because they don't know the difference. So my son, who's super sharp, I said to him, get me on 20 podcasts. They did it in like 16 days.
That makes more sense. There's
Yeah,
so
because they
many,
don't know any better.
there's no limitation, right?
He did it a totally different way. He's sharp anyway, and he understands my space, and he's helped me with my platform. He did it through Instagram.
Right, which makes more
So he
sense.
didn't even go the typical email, send the one
That's
sheeter,
funny.
all that, And then he's like, Dad, you're verified on Instagram. So they're gonna look at your, they're gonna take a message from you.
That makes
So he's probably in under 2 months, probably booked, I don't know, 45 podcasts for me.
It's amazing. That's
So,
great.
so he turned it into a company called Podcast Squad, which you can go online and see. He started it with his best friend. And so I've been helping them. And so that's been fun. So working with them has been a lot of fun. And one day I'd like to start a company that helps authors launch their books, but like everything. It's like right now when you launch a book, it's like you need 5 different people
Painful.
helping you.
Yeah, it's a very
Crazy.
fragmented space, right? As you know, I mean, we've
Right.
both been through that. So
Right.
I've seen some real scams.
They are, and I've tried everything, and so I own the name, the domain. I actually have the logo right there because I'm going to launch it called Platform Pros. And if I spin this around, you can see it. It's kind of over in that corner there, but trust me, it's there.
Yeah.
And because again, a problem. I've spent a lot of money, and it's been disjointed. And I'd like to, if you're launching a book, you just go to one company. And
Yeah, it makes more
they
sense.
do the media hits for you. They, get you on the podcast to launch, and the other thing I learned with 20 podcasts don't move the needle. It's 100 podcasts.
Yeah, probably.
You launch a book, you need to be on 100 podcasts.
That makes total sense.
20 podcasts, you are not going to notice anything. So they sell the 20 pack, the package of 20. And I'm like, I know that. I've launched, 3 books. I have a 4th book coming out here in the next few months. I'm like, no, you got to be on 100.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is like people underestimate the amount of exposure you really need and the amount of exposure any one of those will give you, right? So it's like, that's a great point for people to make. Because I think they always wonder, what does it take to get, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people to buy your stuff, right?
You gotta move the needle. You gotta move the needle. And the thing is with a podcast is because, like you could do it on Instagram and all that. I'm not a social media guy, to be frank with you. I mean, I can spell Instagram and I'm verified on it, but other than that, my team helps me with that. But on a podcast, if you ask me a question, this is like breathing for me.
Right.
So I really feel like the podcast is the best method as an author because we have a story.
I agree.
Every author has a story or something they can educate you about. So a social media I don't believe it's the best platform for an author. It's an ancillary piece of it and it can be helpful in some communication, but listen to an author talk about his book for 20 minutes or look at a little, 1-minute story on Instagram, which one's going to move the needle further? And I've always believed podcasts were just a great method for doing that. So there's another company I started. So that's how my world.
Well, I'm excited
evolves.
to see that you're doing it with your son. My goal with Founders Pack, we're going to start launching these online pitch events. So if he's interested, I'm more than want to invite him on that. And maybe I can invite you to be a judge at some point because it'll basically be 5 companies a week that pitch 3 entrepreneurs or experts. So we'd love to have you as a part of that. I want to be conscious of your time. What's the best?
Stuff like that is stuff like that's fun.
Great, that's awesome. And my goal is it sounds crazy, but over 10 years to impact 1 million entrepreneurs, whether they're young entrepreneurs or older, in some way or form that we help them start up and grow a business.
Well, I wake up every day with a very simple mission. I want to equip, encourage, and educate entrepreneurs.
I love it. We are aligned on that, and I'm happy to help you.
Very simple.
My friend David Meltzer, who's been on the podcast, says that
Yeah,
his,
it's
I don't
been
know if
on
you've
mine
met,
as well. Yeah.
oh, yeah, David's a great guy. And I love his mission, which is to make 1 billion people happy. But his way is to impact 1,000 people to impact 1,000 people.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
happy
he
to
was a
partner
good
with him.
guest, sharp guy.
Excellent guy. So yeah, I do want to be conscious of your time. A couple quick things. First of all, is how do people get in touch?
Yeah. You know, let me just give you something. Just go to my website, seancastrina.com, and you'll get a free book, my first book, The 8 Unbreakable Rules for Business Startup Success. It's just a really good book. And why is that? Well, because I wrote it. But no, actually, it's got a lot of positive New York Times bestselling reviews, as well as, you know, educational community like Darden School, at one of the top business schools in the country, and professors. And it's just a really good practical book for anybody looking to start a business, and it's free. So
Oh,
you get that on my site. And then, you know, the 10-minute entrepreneur podcast, it's 10 minutes. And, you know, I a little biased, but we give you some steak every single day.
I love it. All right, a couple
And
quick
then, of course,
questions.
Instagram.
Oh,
You can obviously follow me
Instagram.
on Instagram. Yeah.
You're verified on Instagram. So there you
Yeah.
go.
So you can find me on Instagram, but, you know, start with a free book, listen to the podcast if you want to learn a little every day. And then if you want to, you know, shoot me a question, you can do that through Instagram.
I love it. Okay, a couple of final
Yeah.
things. First off, if you are the sum, as Jim Rohn says, of the 5 people you spend the most time with, who do you, Sean, spend the most time with?
You know, I spend the most time with my family still, my family and my business partners. My family and my business partners I'm kind of married to them. And then it's funny, I have 5 friends from college, and we don't use any social media to talk. We talk on the phone. We do vacations every year as a family. And then we do, so we do that. And then it's funny, I can like show you this picture over there. Like, here's all our kids. These are these
Oh,
families.
I love it.
This
Look
is
at
our
that.
vacations.
That's amazing.
So I pay, they just hope that I make money every year, pray that I make money every year, and then I take everybody away twice a year. So yeah, my 5 closest friends from college, and then my family and business partners.
I love it. All right, the final thing is when we have interesting people on the podcast, we like you to nominate other interesting people to be a guest of Automate and Grow. We typically talk to experts or entrepreneurs, and usually the first person that comes to your mind is the best. So who would you, Sean, like to nominate as a future guest of Automate and Grow?
You know, Dan Miller, he's a really sharp guy. He wrote the book 48 Days to the Work You Love. And one of the genuinely good, one of the nicest people I've ever met.
I love it.
Just a super quality, and New York Times bestselling author to go with it, but just a real good guy.
All right, Dan Miller, Sean has nominated you as a future guest. We will accept that nomination. Sean, I want to acknowledge the amazing work you're doing, and I'd love to help support you in any way I can. And I look forward to talking to you in the future.
Great. Thank you so much for letting me be on the podcast.
Anytime, feel free to come back. This has been another episode of the Automate and Grow podcast. We will see you and hopefully Dan on a future episode of Automate and Grow.